What's up, guys, to part 5 of my Hyperion review. I'm gonna have to say this, part 5, which is Bron Lamia's story, as the reason why she is in the pilgrimage, definitely surprised me the most. I was very happily surprised by her story. Honestly, every single story so far, besides Martin Selenis's, has been amazing. Wintrob's has been amazing, Kassad's been amazing, Father Hoyt's story has been amazing, and even Bron Lamia's is also freaking amazing, alright? So, first things first. Before the story starts, I need to actually remind myself what actually fucking happened. Well, actually, I might just go ahead and talk about this one thing. It is mentioned before Bron Lamia's story starts that the consul used to have a wife. Let me look for the exact quote here. About his description when he has his clothing. Here it is. This is the description of everybody having some clothing because they are on the peaks of Hyperion now. So they're on the mountain ranges, traveling through a tram car, getting to their destination. Now let me go to the first sentence. The 6 of them had their luggage on deck even before the wind wagon reefed its sails and extended a gangplank. Each now wore a heavy coat against the elements. Kassad and Force issue thermoflage cape. Bron Lamia in a long garment called a trench coat for reasons long forgotten. Martin Selenis in thick furs which rippled now sable, now gray with the vagaries of wind. Father Hoyt in long black, which made him more of a scarecrow figure than ever. So Wintrob in a thick goose-down jacket, which covered him and the child. And the consul, in the thinning but serviceable greatcoat his wife had given him some decades before. We're getting these little hints, these little snippets of the consul, and we're getting a little bit more world building, a little bit more character development. Each chapter, each part, just giving these little things. So it talked once about when the consul was holding Father Hoyt, that he was holding him like the son he used to hold before. And then we get this little one of having a jacket, a greatcoat that his wife had given him some decades before. These little things make me more and more interested in what the consul's story is going to be. I'm very interested in what the consul story is going to be. But before I say that, we have 2 stories left. We have Het Mastine, which, who the heck knows what happened to him? Because later on in the book, because before the story even happened, Het Mastine has all of a sudden vanished, right? He's vanished from the story. His room had a bunch of blood around it. No one knows what happened. No one knows who did it. No one knows if he's even alive. So Het Mastine just all of a sudden popped out of existence in the story, which I kind of don't like. I find it was incredibly random, but it does add the eeriness and the creepiness aspect of Hyperion. It does add more to it, so I understand it somewhat, but it was something that I just didn't really... Again, I have to see, right? I have to see throughout the story, but it didn't really add anything to the story, in my opinion. Anyways, what I was saying before is that we have 2 stories left, if Het Mastine is still alive. The consuls and Het Mastine's. There's not that much book left. I have like less than 100 pages left, I believe. Yeah, I have less than 100 pages left of the book. So, are we only going to get the console story, or is this something that's going to be bleeding on into the sequel? Which I'm not even sure I'll even want to read. Because this book has been good, but not incredibly good. It hasn't floored me with every single story. It hasn't made me interested in the world of Hyperion. Sorry about that, guys. As much as other books have, like Dune's books made me incredibly hooked on. Hold on. Made me incredibly hooked. Book 2 from then on. And the Green Creek novels, which I've read as well, made me super interested from first book onward. This book hasn't really done that for me. It's been good, but not crazy good. And some aspects of it I still don't really like. Anyways, so we get introduced to Bron Lamia's story. She is a detective. A personal solo detective. So I don't think she works for any type of industry. She works for herself. A man comes into her office looking to find the murderer of himself. That was interesting, because what's revealed the few couple seconds after is that the man that has came in, his name is Johnny, looking for the murderer of his own person, is a cybrid. A sort of, I don't know if it's like a human body that the AI consciousness has gone into, or it's a literal cyborg, but just with more organic parts. Because of things later on, it kind of confuses me as to what a cybrid actually is. I believe it's just a human body with an AI consciousness inside it, I believe. But anyways, he reveals that he is a cybrid and wants Lamia to find out who the heck basically short-circuited him during a couple days before. And we get some really nice detective sequences. I'm not much of a mystery guy. I'm not much of a detective type of person in terms of genre. I don't really like that genre that much. But this part of her following Johnny throughout his entire day. Sorry about that, guys. An alarm came off. But what I was saying is that the sequence between her following Johnny throughout the day was incredibly interesting, and it made me pretty involved into her story. And then we get another hint. Another interesting part of the story. Johnny, his body, his persona, his personality, his memories are based off of a poet named John Keats. John Keats is constantly mentioned throughout this book. I wonder if it's Dan Simmons' favorite poet of some sort. But he is constantly mentioned throughout the books. And Johnny himself is a representation of John Keats. Which is interesting to see his actual persona, to get the tidbits of John Keats' actual life. Again, a good guess on his life, right? I just don't really see the reason as to why it is important. There are specific places in Hyperion that are named after this specific poet. Martin Selenis talks about the greatest poet. Not the greatest, but the most... I think the term he used was the most human poet was John Keats. I think this is more so Dan Simmons kind of inserting his own interests into the book, because I know nothing about John Keats, and so him being constantly mentioned throughout the story doesn't really hit me that hard, because I just don't know the guy, right? I don't know who he is. I don't know what important stuff happened in his life. I just don't... I haven't read any of his works, and so because of that, these constant hints, these constant cameos of John Keats, it just doesn't hit me that hard. And so I don't find that part of the story to be particularly interesting. Then we get an interesting, a cool little sequence by Lamia, where she is, following Johnny, and she swallows this melanin pill that makes her appear as a young black woman. That is actually interesting, because me being in somewhat of a fitness space and being introduced and told of different supplements, different steroid supplements, this melanin pill, which seems kind of far-fetched, is actually pretty common in the fitness space. There's a specific pill that you can take that specifically targets your melanin, makes you literally darker, more tan. And hearing that mentioned into a sci-fi book is pretty interesting, because this is no longer sci-fi in a sense, right? There's pills nowadays that actually make you tanner. This is no longer a sci-fi. This is an actual non-fiction in a sense. So I found that to be pretty interesting. Specifically me being in the fitness space. I found it to be pretty interesting as we go through the story. And then we get to, I think, the best quote of the story so far. I have to find it real quick. So I'm gonna hold on. Oh, here it is. So it gets to Johnny and Bron Lamia talking a little bit, and Bron Lamia wanting proof that Johnny is an AI. Johnny takes out his hand. Give me your hand. Bron Lamia gives him his hand. And then we get this really nice quote that I think is the best quote so far in Bron Lamia's story. And well, give me this. Johnny held my right hand in both of his. His fingers were longer than mine. Mine were stronger. I don't know why that part hit me so hard, but it was very... I don't know why. It was a nice quote. It's not as hard-hitting as other quotes have been in the other stories, but I just really liked that sentence. And the imagery that's put into my mind of Johnny having more slender fingers than Bron Lamia's, but then the image of mine were stronger. So you can imagine Bron Lamia's hand as being more thickly dense, more thicker finger muscles. That imagery just really hit nice for me. And then we get to a point where Bron Lamia kind of interrogates, kind of questions the guy on what Johnny did in this previous bar a few days beforehand. Well, I'm about to fart. And it's revealed to Bron Lamia by this guy that a Templar and a Lucian, which is what Bron Lamia is, the people that are in the planet Lucis, higher gravity, so they're stronger, doesn't really matter too much. That two of them were talking to Johnny before the murder happened for Johnny. The Templar being described is very interesting, because later on in the book, the rest of the pilgrimage questioned Lamia if this Templar that was mentioned was Het Mastine. She said she doesn't know because she never actually sees the Templar. But that little hint, that little hint of, maybe Het Mastine is doing a little more than he should. Maybe Het Mastine is the agent that the consul was looking for in terms of them betraying him. Interesting stuff. And we get some nice comedic moments. We get some good comedic moments throughout the book. Not much to say in terms of that. Some good comedy. And so we eventually get to a chase sequence where Lamia finds the Lucian, who had a specific hairstyle, the ponytail, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter too much. Get a nice chase sequence and some more world building for the Templars. The Templars are a sort of nature preservation group. And they have this specific safari/nature walk that puts people walking through different worlds. And this is where Lamia chases the Lucian to track him down. Through different worlds, icy worlds, water planets, etc., etc., etc. It was a very nice way to, one, add world building to the mention of different worlds, the descriptions of their worlds. Very fast paced because obviously Lamia is chasing the man. But it also gives world building to the Templars and what they're all about. And hearing about them petitioning to the All Thing about preserving a certain planet, a certain species, and things of that nature really up the game for me in terms of giving me more and more things to think about when it comes to Hyperion. Very interesting stuff. And it makes me more interested into hearing Het Mastine's story if he's still alive. And if he's not the betrayer here. And then we get a little twist. I might have to actually stop it for a quick second. Oh, that the man that Lamia was chasing wasn't even actually a man. He was a cybrid. Which is why at the end of the chase sequence, he burned up and basically self-destructed. Which means that the AI society, known as the Technocore, which was a very, very good world building in my opinion, hearing the description of there being 3 different factions in the Technocore, and they're doing shit that not even the humans are knowing about, that they're way out of the hemisphere, and the hint that they might be in contact with aliens, that they're already in contact with the Ousters. That bit of world building makes it so interesting in my opinion. Makes it so interesting. It opened up a whole new world in terms of the AI societies. Very interesting stuff. And then we get a nice little cameo where Lamia meets Gladstone. We saw Gladstone in the beginning of the book where she was contacting the consul about going on the pilgrimage and also looking for an agent that might be betraying them. It was cool to see her, though it didn't really do much else for me besides it being a cool thing. We do get some insights in terms of how much humanity knows what the Technocore is doing, in terms of what Bron Lamia herself has one up over in terms of the all thing and all that stuff. Really nice hints. And then we get where things tie together. We get the mentions of other books, of other stories in the pilgrimage. We get the mention of Rachel, Sol Winthrop's daughter, having an accident in the Time Tombs. We get the mention of the Shrike Church on Lucian that Sol Winthrop went to in order to find out what was wrong with his daughter. We get those mentions. which are very interesting, and it ties everything together nicely. It makes it just makes it feel more coherent, and it makes it feel more put together, the story does, in terms of bringing everybody's around. Very nice way to do it. And then we get to the crazy ass sequence of going into the Technocore through the friend of BB and trying to gain information. This entire sequence I was incredibly confused by, but also wowed by. It was crazy. The descriptions were crazy. I didn't understand half of it. It was just a cool sequence in general. And then we get an interesting thing where Johnny reveals that the All Thing, humanity's AI that helps them in terms of prediction, is actually a shit version of an AI compared to the rest of the Technocore. That idea fascinates me. That this entire AI society gave humanity an amateur AI just to keep them quiet and have and have the delusion over humanity that they're helping them, when that is not the case. They gave them a shit version of an AI to predict. That description was just, that reveal was just very, very interesting to me. Very cool. And then we get the crazy ass action sequence before they were allowed into the Shrike Temple, where a bunch of goons, a bunch of mercenaries basically just try to fucking disintegrate Johnny and Bron Lamia. Amazing sequence, amazing action. The descriptions were crazy. And then finally having Bron Lamia with a Johnny that has a broken off right arm and a broken off left leg, just hiking him up to the Shrike Temple. It was an amazing sequence. A sequence that was very well done in my opinion. I will give Dan Simmons one thing. He's not as good with descriptions about the world, but he's damn good at describing action sequences and characters. Damn good at describing those two things. And then we get, honestly, the craziest reveal that made me think about what the heck Johnny is. I'll read the quote out here. This is Bron Lamia speaking. "I'm pregnant. I think that Johnny knew it. I don't know for sure. I'm pregnant twice. Once with Johnny's child, and once with the Shron Loop memory of what he was. I don't know if the two are meant to be linked. It will be months before the child is born, and only days before I face the Shrike." And that one reveal that she is pregnant with Johnny's child just makes me kind of confused. Like, because if Johnny is the cybrid, right? Is it just a human body that they just implant an AI consciousness in? Or is it just a really fucking advanced cyborg that just, for some reason, has sperm implanted into it? I don't know. That idea made me go fucking insane. I don't really know what they're going to do with that. But what I will say is that that part was very surprising to me, and it adds a whole new layer of Lamia's story. all in all, Lamia's story was amazing. Can't wait to see whose story we have next. Lamia's story was pretty damn good. In so far of the rankings, I have, let's see, I have probably Soul Wintrop's story up top, then Kassad's, then Lamia's, then Hoyt's. That's my order so far. Very good book. Not amazing, but very interesting book that I am very looking forward to finishing, probably in the next part. Who knows? Because I think I only have 1 or 2 more parts left of the story. Amazing book, guys. Cool action sequences, cool world building tricks. Not the best I've ever heard, but I mean, who knows? Maybe the ending will absolutely floor me. Anyways, please subscribe, please comment, please like, and I'll see you guys in the next one for part 6 of my Hyperion review. What is there left to say but wow? I just finished the last story, the last part of Hyperion, and it left off with a fucking cliffhanger. The ending was so crazy. The console story was so crazy that I just what can I say? So, turns out that the console is the grandson of the first story that he is telling. The grandson of a man who happened to be in a relationship with a native of Maui Covenant, but who, due to him constantly being on time travel, due to being part of a ship crew, his partner, the consul's grandmother, grew a lot older, a lot faster than he did, to the point where she was like 70 something when he became 30 something, I believe. Throughout that entire story, the consul's grandfather, Marin, was constantly perplexed and confused by his partner. But he became more and more sympathetic, more and more attuned with her being a native from her planet. A quote, which I'll probably get out here so I can actually say. Let's see. I'm not going to mention a lot of this stuff today because this was pretty crazy. Hold on just a second and I'll find the quote. This quote is probably the best quote out of the entire book because it kind of highlights the grandfather's kind of whole outlook on life. Man, was the console story good. I already knew it was going to be good. I already knew it was going to be good. Here it is. Here's a quote. I already knew it was going to be amazing as soon as I started to be interested in the console story. Anyways, this paragraph is probably one of the best quotes out of the entire book for me. This is in Marin's perspective, the consul's grandfather. The last time I saw Siri, she was 70 standard years old. She was 70 years old, and still she had never traveled off-world, used a fat line, tasted any alcoholic drink except wine, interfaced with an empathy surgeon, stepped through a Farcaster door, smoked a cannabis stick, received a gene tailoring, plugged into a Stimson, received any formal schooling, taken any RNA medication, heard of Zen Gnostics or the Shrike Church, or flown any vehicle except an ancient Viking skimmer belonging to her family. Siri had never made love to anyone except me, or so she said, and so I believed. That gave me the most hard-hitting thoughts when it came to a story. Very tragic. Very, very tragic when it came to Siri specifically. Her entire world being completely trashed by hegemony due to people on Maui Covenant wanting things to stay as they were before. It's the whole Europeans going to America, right? It's the whole cleansing of the Native Americans, right? It's the exact same story, except in a planetary scale. Extremely tragic. I was completely enthralled by it. The only thing I found kind of weird was Marin's obsession with the 16-year-old version of Siri. That was kind of weirdly pedo-ish, especially when he was 30-something years old thinking about a 16-year-old Siri. That was kind of pedo-ish, and it was kind of turning me off from the story, but everything else, the reveals, was pretty spectacular. And the fact that they were only together for 103 days. Only together for 103 days. And he's experienced that much life with his partner. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. Tragic story, especially for Siri. Absolutely tragic. Insanely done. And then we get the twist. The first twist is that the story that the console just told wasn't about him, it was about his grandfather. Cool twist. Had me thinking, oh, nice little twist there, Dan Simmons. That was pretty good. What can you do now? And then we get this review. That the console was the agent that Gladstone was warning them about. He had been a double, triple agent for pretty much everyone in. As I said, he had been an agent for every faction in the galaxy throughout his whole entire life. To the point of losing his wife, to the point of losing his son. All so that, eventually, he could tear down the hegemony. Insane stuff. And the other twist, too, of killing the ouster people he was with so that he could start the process of the Shrike coming, because apparently the ousters were able to know how the fields of the time tombs worked, and so we're able to activate the Shrike, basically. Insane shit. Insanity stuff, dude. Insanity stuff. And the reveal of him being a triple agent for everyone in the galaxy, man, I mean, that was fucking insane. Fucking insane. And do you know what they do? Do you know what Dan Simmons does after revealing this fact? After revealing a triple agent fact that started the Shrike so that he could purge all of these freaking colonizers on the entire galaxy, he ends it on a cliffhanger. He ends the book on a fucking cliffhanger. Insane book. The beginning was eh. Martin's story was shit, in my opinion. Everyone else's story was great. The ending story, the console story, was freaking insane. And not only was the console story insane, not only did it leave off a cliffhanger, we still don't know what Het Mastine is doing. We have no idea what the heck he is doing. We think we saw him earlier in the story, walking through the time tombs, but that's it. We don't know what he's doing, if he's actually alive. We don't know his story. He didn't tell the pilgrims anything. Oh, that was crazy. I hated it and loved it at the same time. Insanity, dude. Insane story. There's nothing else to say. There's nothing else to say. Dan Simmons, you did it. You made an amazing cliffhanger, an amazing twist of reveals throughout every single story except for Martin's. I mean, what else is there to say? This is a damn good book. Not a 5 out of 5 stars in my opinion. I would give it probably a... I'd give it probably a 4.5. So let me put that in my book. 4.5. 4.5 out of 5. Damn good twists. Damn good twists. Amazing characters. And that's pretty much it. Damn good twists and amazing characters. That was the whole story. I mean, I'm not going to ramble any more than I already have. Amazing story. Like, crazy. Crazy story. There's nothing else to say. I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you guys subscribe. I hope you guys comment. I have to pick up the second book now, which is what? The Fall of Hyperion, which I assume is just the Ouster invasion of Hyperion, is the whole entire book. And hopefully, Het Mastine's story. Nothing else to say, guys. Have a good day. I mean, this was crazy. Like I said, like the video, comment, subscribe, blah, blah. Pick up the book. Really damn good. Didn't floor me, but it was really damn good. I'll see you guys next time.
Dang it, I'm